another episode of Us Anxious Folk. My name is Lauren. Thank you very much for being here with me today. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a concept that I actually read about in a parenting book of all places. It's something that I've been doing for quite a while but didn't know there was a name for it, and it's so helpful when it comes to navigating exposure and panic and anxiety just in general. And it's this idea that two things can be true. And I know that sounds really simple, doesn't it? But it's funny because when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to panic, we operate out of this assumption that if panic is there or if anxiety is there, then we need to fix that before we can do anything else. And I guess this, comes under the umbrella of anxiety in general. The fact that anxiety is designed to be super loud. It's designed to get all of your attention. It's designed to, take away the sort of relevance of anything else beyond the anxiety, beyond the panic. You're supposed to pay attention, and you're supposed to pay attention above all else. But so we get hung up on this idea that we need to fix or eradicate the anxiety or the panic before we can actually go and do anything. But then we also hear that we need to feel the fear and do it anyway, and we need to do the thing so that we can learn that the panic isn't actually something to be afraid of. But then we get stuck on this, but how? Like, how can I be capable of doing exposure or going out with friends or, whatever it is that you want to be able to do, but anxiety stops you from doing? How can I do that thing when I feel the way that I feel? It's not possible to have both, and I'm supposed to fix the anxiety so that I can go and do that thing. But this idea that two things can be true at the same time really helps to bridge that gap between feeling incapable of doing something because you have so much anxiety about it, and then getting to that place where you are doing the thing regardless. It helps us to get over that but how place, basically, the but how hump, if you will. And so what it looks like is saying, and just stick with me because I know this sounds like super basic shit, but it's always the basic things that are the hardest, right? We like to overcomplicate stuff. It looks like saying, I can be anxious, but I can also be maybe a little bit excited. And often that feeling of excitement is hard to find because the anxiety is superseding the excitement, but it can still be there. Or I cannot know the next step to take, but I can still take, a step. Like, I can be unsure about what the next right thing is to do, but I can just still do the next thing and see where I end up. Something that it has looked like consistently for me is that I can go somewhere and I can be feeling like I can't do it, and I can also be doing it at the same time. For toilet anxiety, for example, it looks like being out at the shops and being like, I really need to go to the bathroom right now. I'm sure that I need to go to the bathroom. I'm sure that if I don't get to the bathroom at this exact moment, something bad's going to happen. But at the same time, I can also be thinking, I trust my body. I'm okay. I will get to a bathroom like in a moment. It's going to be okay. So it really can be hanging out in that space between the divide of I'm not okay and I am okay, but acknowledging that those two things can be true at the same time, instead of trying to hang out in one or the other, instead of trying to make one thing the most true element of the situation, like I'm afraid and I don't think I can do it. Instead of making that the most true thing, also being open to the fact that I'm afraid and I don't think I can do it, but I also think I can do it as well. And I can have both of those things at the same time. And I can have both of those things going on inside of me at the same time. And I can kind of scoot through the middle and just see what happens in that middle space. And this is something that I spoke to a sessions client with about hanging out in that middle space, kind of like that moment between the inhale and the exhale, that tiny little pocket of space that we can actually really open up. The thing that I think is really important to recognize is that humans are dualistic creatures by nature. Like, we have so many opposing things going on at once. There's always like two sides to the same coin, and then we forget that is true. Like, we want it to be one way or the other. We want it to be black or white, because it makes it easier to know what to do and to know how to act and to know like how to exist. But we can't have that. And the more we try to be so strict about it, the harder it is to actually get through life. I've talked about this in a chapter in the book where like the more you try to control every aspect of, your exposure therapy or how much anxiety you experience, the more you try to control that, the more inflexible you become and the harder everything gets, and you become a real pain in the ass to be around because you're so strict about like what's okay and what's not okay and what you can do and what you can't do. And when people expect more from you, you get annoyed at them. Like, you're like, don't you know that I can't do that? Like, don't be ridiculous. Like, that's, you expect so much of me and I'm just not capable of it. But I want you to remember that is a story that may well have been true for years. But it's only one side of it. And so for as long as you have spent telling yourself, I can't do X, Y, and Z. For me, it was I'm not a morning person. I can't leave the house early in the morning because there's too much going on with my gut. And that was true. There was a lot going on with my gut in the mornings. And whenever I did leave the house in the mornings, shit was really hard and I struggled. And it was much easier for me to take time to build up to get out of the house, because in the afternoons I felt like a totally different person and I felt more capable. So yes, that was true, and I would have stuck by that. I would have died on that hill until I started to stop being so strict about that rule and got a job where I started working earlier, and a lot of life happened in between now and then. Having another baby, for example, and having to do these things that meant that I was always leaving the house early. And now I am, up at 5:30, up at 6. Sometimes I leave the house at 6:30. Like, I am up and I am out and I am going, and I don't need to build up to things. And it's really interesting because I think that we want these stories to be true about ourselves, of like unequivocal truths. And we also want the other side of that story. Like, we think, using my own example, I was like, I really want to be a morning person. I want to just be able to just leave the house and not have to build up to it. I was able to do that. And the way that I got there was by, learning that those two things can be true at the same time. I can be someone who is, like quite grumpy in the mornings and has a dodgy belly and like, isn't like that get up and go, but I can also be that person who gets up and goes. Like, I don't have to have it one way or the other all the time, and I don't have to get stuck on that being the story. There are multiple facets of you. There are multiple parts of you, but just start by recognizing that there can at least be two things true at the same time. There can be the part of you that doesn't think that you can do it, and then there can be the part of you that does think you can do it. And you might not be used to paying any attention to that part of you that thinks you can do it, because you are so used to hanging out in the other side of like, I can't do it, I can't do it. You are so used to repeating that to yourself over and over and over and over. And that has become the story that is your truth, right? So recognize that two things can be true at the same time. Start paying attention to that other side of you that thinks that you can do it. Some people call that side of you your resilient self, your courageous self, if you're going by my book. Just the side of you that knows better, some people might say, but I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that both sides of you have a place. Both stories that you tell have relevance and have validity and have ways of having supported you through your life, but recognize that there can be two truths at the same time, and start practicing walking through your life acknowledging that two things can be true at the same time, and it'll open up a lot of things for you. I hope this episode wasn't too rambly. I hope it made sense. I kind of just went in for it without actually breaking down how I was going to talk about this episode. I hope it made sense and it was okay. And I hope it hit something with you. Take care, and I will see you for the next episode of Us Anxious Folk. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Us Anxious Folk podcast, the podcast for the chronically overwhelmed, perpetually panicked, anxious folk in all of us. If you would like to find more about me, you can find me on YouTube at Lauren Rose or on Instagram at Lauren R_Rose.